Exposed. How I transformed a family trip dismissal into an amazing journey of unexpected love. Sarah's heart sank when the email pinged in her inbox, confirming her dismissal from the family's annual summer trip to the mountains. For years, those trips had been a time of unity and laughter, a reprieve from the weight of responsibilities she constantly carried as an elementary school teacher. Each year, she had looked forward to the sound of her family's chatter and the gushing streams, but this year, her chair remained empty, stuck in the classroom of her small Midwestern town. She felt the walls closing in a suffocating routine, overshadowed by disbelief. They just didn't understand. The cognitive dissonance tore at her soul. Was she really that forgettable? She wrestled with the familiarity of the classroom, where she poured every ounce of love and patience into shaping young minds. Her colleagues floated around her like ghosts, rarely acknowledging the long hours she dedicated, always complimenting those who stood out. Stagnation gnawed at her insides. Was this to be her life? Wandering the familiar streets after work, she felt both familiar and foreign. She turned down an alleyway, trying to process the swirling emotions of rejection and inadequacy. That was when she spotted it. A quaint local art studio, its windows framing bursts of color that called to her, almost as if the paint embodied the vibrancy she yearned for. A flicker of hope sparked within her. Drawn in by the warmth, she hesitated at the threshold. Could she really step inside and stir the dormant artist within? As paintbrushes danced in the hands of other creators, Sarah felt overwhelmed by a mix of nostalgia and longing. Memories of sketching and splashing colors across canvases flooded back, now long buried beneath lessons plans and grading papers. That feeling of cheerful messiness, risk, and joy echoed through the walls of the studio. Was it too late to reclaim what she once loved? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. A sudden wave of determination washed over her, urging her to pick up a brush. But as soon as she dipped it into paint, doubt crashed in. What if her colleagues saw her as frivolous for pursuing artistry so late in life? Sarah fought against the inner turmoil, desperate to carve out a niche that could be hers, yet fearful of the whispers that would follow her journey. Would her art be a mere hobby, an escape from reality, or could it lead to something greater? As her connection with Matt, a seasoned art curator, blossomed, the mentorship turned into something more personal. Their conversations cracked her heart open, revealing the mixed emotions she battled, ambition edged with fear and uncertainty. But jealousy brewed from her past. Former friends began to resent her rebirth into creativity. Their comments slashed her confidence, making her question if embracing this new path would lead to isolation rather than acceptance. With the pressure building around her, Sarah's artwork was finally set to be displayed at her first exhibit. Not just a showcase of colors but a battleground of her soul. Each piece a reflection of the complexities rippling through her life. Just hours before the event, an unexpected revelation about her family's past sent her spiraling. Racked with indecision, it felt as if the choice loomed over her like a dark cloud. Should she step farther into the light of her dreams, or return to the fragile connections that had left her in the shadows? As she prepared to face the gathering crowd, the anxiety weighed heavier than ever. Sarah stood at the edge of this new world, ready to leap, but one question gnawed at her heart. Would she be strong enough to embrace both her artistry and familial bonds? Or would one of them shatter beneath the weight of her choice? The canvas awaited her with a blank stare. Every corner a potential for clarity, but uncertainty flickered like a candle in the wind. The crowd buzzed around Sarah, a whirlwind of voices and laughter that filled the gallery. She could feel their anticipation, a tidal wave swelling beneath the surface, pushing her toward the precipice of either triumph or disaster. Moments before her showcase began, she stared at the collection of her art, each piece drenched in her emotions: hope, fear, love, and loss intertwined like the vivid strokes of paint across the canvas. As the first potential viewer approached, admiration gleamed in their eyes. watching the colors intertwine and dance in a story only Sarah could tell. Yet just as quickly, self-doubt crept in. With every stroke, she had poured out her vulnerability. What if they saw only the flaws? What if her struggle to connect these feelings on canvas rendered her insignificant in their eyes? A soft hand on her shoulder jolted her from this spiral. It was Matt. His presence radiated calmness. "You've created something beautiful here, Sarah. Trust in your journey," he whispered, offering her a reassuring smile that felt like sun breaking through storm clouds. She could feel her guard drop ever so slightly, listening to the steadiness of his confidence. But doubt still clung to her like shadow. As the opening words echoed through the gallery, she maneuvered through the throngs of faces eager to immerse themselves in her hard work. Conversations erupted about technique, color play, and the narrative woven into her visuals. Each positive comment nudged her closer to believing in herself, but the flash of her family's dismissal loomed ominously in her mind. Were they seeing the same thing? Had they missed the essence of her evolution entirely? "Why did you choose to display such personal themes?" A voice broke through her thoughts. A woman stood before her, arms crossed with a genuine inquisitiveness sparking in her gaze. The question gripped her heart with an urgency, driving her to confront the truth of her journey. "I suppose. I've always felt the weight of expectations," Sarah admitted, swallowing hard. "I wanted to show that tearing down walls is both a process and a beautiful chaos." Her honesty spilled out, a new layer of herself unveiling in the public arena. "Don't let the past dictate your power," the woman responded, her demeanor encouraging. "Finding your voice can inspire others who feel trapped. Curate your life as you do your art. You own the narrative." Beneath those words, Sarah felt the pulse of possibility beckoning. Could she truly redefine her path? Each artwork now emerged as a lifeline, connecting her past self to who she aspired to be: authentic, vibrant, liberated. Yet, as she glanced around, a familiar figure emerged from the crowd. It was her sister, a friendly face amid a sea of strangers. Despite the warmth of recognition, Sarah's stomach twisted painfully. Would this be a moment of reconciliation or confrontation? The gallery that had become a sanctuary now churned with unease as the specter of familial discord loomed over her. "Sarah," her sister called, weaving through the gallery as if drawn by an invisible rope. Anxiety gripped Sarah again, the sheen of her vulnerability suddenly exposed under the weight of that gaze. What would her sister say? Would she recognize the strength that had assumed command in Sarah's heart? Or would her initial rejection echo into this transformative moment? Tension hung thick in the air as Sarah prepared to face the question that held her future in its grip. Would her art induce healing between them, or unearth fractures that could never mend? The weight of her world settled atop her shoulders once more as she took a deep breath, ready to confront what lay ahead. The moment had arrived to embrace whatever truth awaited her, whether it cradled her dreams, or threatened to unravel everything she had built. Sarah held her breath as her sister approached, her expression inscrutable, the distance between them closing like a tidal wave. The gallery around them blurred into a backdrop, the voices fading into a muted hum. For years, their relationship had been marred by misunderstandings and unmet expectations, and now, in this crucial moment, everything rested on the precipice of her sister's words. "Wow," her sister said finally, stopping short in front of a large canvas splashed with constellations of color. "You really did this?" There was a tremor in her voice, a flicker of something beyond surface-level approval. "Yeah," Sarah replied, her voice barely rising above a whisper, battling an avalanche of emotions that threatened to engulf her. "Every piece reflects something I've been through. I wanted to share my journey." "What journey?" her sister countered, arms crossing defensively as if preparing to brace against a storm. "I thought you just painted landscapes and flowers." A flash of old wounds reopened at the jab, prompting Sarah to steel herself. This was it, the crossroads where her struggle for self-acceptance met familial rejection. She took another deep breath, determined to shift the narrative. "I was trapped in those expectations," she said, each word unraveling a thread of the years spent trying to meet her sister's standards. "But these paintings are me breaking away from that." Silence enveloped them like a dense fog. Sarah could practically see her sister processing the weight of her admission. It struck her how vulnerable she now stood, bearing her soul in a way that could either bridge the chasm between them or deepen it indefinitely. "What do you want from me?" her sister finally asked, an edge creeping back into her tone. "You want me to praise your decision to take this artistic path? You know Mom and Dad think it's a waste." The mention of their parents twisted the knife. Would they forever define her reality? "I need you to see that I'm learning to value my voice. This isn't a waste, it's me reclaiming who I am." Surveying her sister's face, she glimpsed the turmoil beneath the surface. "Uncertainty, perhaps?" Sarah pressed on, fueled by newly kindled resolve. "Do you think art should be measured only by how others perceive it? Just like life? Isn't it worth creating something meaningful for ourselves, regardless of how others might judge it?" Her sister's brow furrowed, confusion mingling with a flicker of recognition. "I guess I just wish you'd choose something more stable, something to help you succeed financially." "Success comes in many forms," Sarah replied, emboldened. "You once told me I was wasting my talent playing it safe. Well, this is me taking a risk. I wish you could support that, see it for what it truly is." An internal battle played out on her sister's face. For a moment, Sarah's heart raced. What if this conversation ended in another familiar fracture? What if her sister still could not embrace her transformation? "I want to support you, Sarah," her sister finally said, her tone softer, though the armor around her heart remained. "It's just hard to understand why all of this matters so much to you." "It matters because I'm learning to love myself," Sarah whispered, her pulse racing. "The journey has been hard but so worth it. I need to show that to the world." Suddenly, a tear rolled down her sister's cheek, and Sarah felt a spark of hope kindling in her chest. Maybe there was a way to reconstruct their bond within this shared journey toward understanding. "Maybe I can try seeing it through your eyes." "Maybe," her sister said, the hesitance palpable. "But it'll take time for me to really accept it." Time. It was both a weighty burden and a glimmer of potential. Sarah nodded slowly, accepting the challenge of patience in the face of familial expectations. "Thank you," she said, her voice steadying with conviction. "I promise I won't stop striving for both of us." As they stood there amidst the vibrant chaos of her gallery, Sarah felt a renewed sense of purpose take root within her. The art, as raw and personal as it was no longer just a reflection of herself, but also a crucial step in rebuilding the very connections that had long felt frayed. With every hesitant word exchanged, Sarah realized that this could be their beginning rather than a relentless cycle of judgment. But lurking beneath the new layers of possibility was a burning question. Would her sister be ready to embrace a shared journey, or would it fall apart as so many moments before it? The moment hung in the air, pregnant with potential, as Sarah wondered where their dialogue would take them next. Peace felt tantalizingly close yet achingly distant, a fragile thread waiting to be woven into the fabric of their lives once again. The air thickened between them, crackling with unuttered feelings and shifting ground. Sarah's heart beat a measured rhythm, a fragile oasis amid the turmoil surrounding their relationship. As she stood before her sister, vulnerability shifted into an overwhelming desire for understanding. This was more than just an artistic endeavor. It was an urgent claim to her identity. "Can I ask you something?" Her sister's voice cut through the haze, a tentative bridge forming between them. "What if Mom and Dad never come around? Could you still find satisfaction in creating despite that?" The question hung there, a stark reminder of the familial expectations Sarah had battled for so long. Her body tensed, but where there had once been defensiveness, a new clarity emerged. "I've spent too long waiting for their approval," she said. "This journey has shown me that my worth isn't contingent on their validation." Her sister's brow furrowed, and Sarah felt an unexpected urge to soften the sharp edges of their conversation. "I want to create for me, for the joy it gives me and, hopefully, for others too. It's cathartic." "There's power in that," her sister replied slowly, almost as if weighing her words against a scale of understanding. "But there's financial reality to consider. Art doesn't pay the bills." That familiar pang of frustration simmered just beneath Sarah's surface, threatening to erupt. Yet, she held her ground, forcing herself to navigate this volatile conversation with patience. "You're right. It doesn't. But what if I can carve a niche for myself? Build a life around it?" This sparked a shift in her sister's expression, a flicker of intrigue passing across her features. It had been a long time since Sarah had seen any glimmer of curiosity directed at her ambitions. You mean go beyond just painting? Exactly, Sarah said, excitement surging through her like electric current. Maybe I can hold workshops, share my process, help others find their own voices. This isn't just about me anymore. I want to connect, inspire, and teach. The silence that followed was thick but different now, charged with newfound possibilities. Sarah could sense the transformation in the atmosphere, a shift from skepticism to cautious optimism. You could really make an impact, huh? Her sister said softly, almost asking. It's like you're opening doors for yourself a lot more than I thought possible. Yes. The affirmation burst forth from Sarah's lips, buoyed by her sister's words. I can turn this into something meaningful, something that resonates with what I've learned. Her sister's gaze sharpened, and for an instant, Sarah felt a flicker of support, a whisper of encouragement. But then that familiar defensive barrier started to rise again. But what if it all collapses? What if this journey isn't as fulfilling as you hope? An icy wave of doubt flashed through Sarah. She had been sucked back into a past where she second-guessed every ambition. But what if it is? What if this isn't about perfection, but about the courage to step into the unknown? That haunting question looped in her mind. Would she dare to expose herself fully, both as an artist and as a sister? The notion invigorated her, setting her heart racing. Sarah's sister stepped forward, almost imperceptibly, as if the distance between them was shrinking. I want to believe that for you. I do, she said quietly. It's just hard for me to reconcile what you've chosen with what I thought you should pursue. Those words hit home, familiar but invigorating. It's okay, Sarah replied, moving to bridge the space. I've been learning to reconcile my dreams with the realities of our lives. Change is messy, but we grow through it. A breath passed between them, neither wanting to press too hard nor retreat into their shells. The atmosphere shifted again as her sister took a deep breath, focusing intently on Sarah's eyes. I think I'd like to learn more about your vision, but only if you promise to be open with me about your feelings as you go through this. A warmth spread within Sarah, igniting a marriage of possibility and fear. It was their first agreement, a pact of trust. Yet, deeper in her chest, uncertainty coiled, snaking around her heart as she considered the difficulties ahead. Deal, Sarah whispered. But I need you to understand it won't be easy. I might fail, and that could be hard for both of us. A pause ensued, heavy with the implications of their exchange. As her sister nodded solemnly, Sarah sensed the shared commitment wafting between them, still sketching the boundaries of their relationship. Yet in that raw openness, an unsettling truth dawned within Sarah. The fear of failure was no longer her greatest enemy. It was the potential of profound growth, both for herself and for the relationship she so desperately wanted to rekindle. As she prepared to continue nurturing this bond, another question loomed large. What if she actually succeeded in forging a new path not only for herself, but also for a sister unversed in the language of her passion? Would their relationship flourish amidst the complexities of art and expectation? With that stirring wonder, Sarah felt the resolve to press onward, aware that the stakes of this venture, both professional and personal, were higher than ever before. Restless energy coursed through Sarah as she stepped away from the conversation with her sister. It was a new beginning, but with that came the palpable weight of uncertainty. Each step felt both thrilling and terrifying, the promise of possibility blending seamlessly with the anxiety of leaving behind the familiar. The bright, chaotic colors of her small studio welcomed her as she entered. Yet they seemed to taunt her right now. Paintings lined the walls, each with a history of struggle and triumph. But today they felt distant, as if waiting for her to catch up. She needed a plan, a clear vision to guide her along this nascent journey. The thrill of potential replayed like a loop in her mind, but just beneath it simmered the fear of inadequacy. She sank into her small chair, its wood worn smooth by countless hours of creative labor. With a deep breath, she opened her sketchbook. The blank pages stared back, whispering tales of unformed ideas. What workshop would ignite the spark in others? How could she turn her passion into an engaging experience? Art had breathed life into her existence, but how could she share it? As the pencil danced across the page, Outlines and ideas began to emerge. Creative pathways unfolded in vibrant hues, each stroke igniting her imagination. Sarah visualized a space where paint and emotion intertwined, workshops filled with laughter, discovery, and connection. But the heart of it, she realized, must hinge on authentic interaction. She needed to create an atmosphere where vulnerability was not only welcomed but celebrated. Yet, beneath the excitement, a dark cloud loomed. What if no one came? What if her efforts were met with indifference? The stinging doubt clawed at her, as it always did. But this time, she refused to let it anchor her journey. Instead, she redirected her energy. If she faltered, it would be from trying, not from fear. Determined, she scribbled a list of potential themes for her workshops on a new page. Each topic bubbled with passion. Finding your voice through color, mixed media. A journey within, and expressing emotion through abstract techniques. The more she wrote, the more the vision solidified. Yet she felt the layers of her dreams ensnarled by practicality. Then she paused, fingers hovering above the page. How will she market this endeavor? Audience engagement haunted her thoughts like a shadow trailing her every decision. The art world was filled with seasoned professionals. Who would want to learn from her? Staring at her reflection in the window, she saw not just a budding artist but the complexity of navigating a world that craved validation. Here lay a truth she hadn't fully acknowledged: her art was not merely an expression, but a confrontational act against her perceived limitations. It was time to dig deeper. If she could embrace her insecurities, perhaps she could inspire others to do the same. With newfound determination, Sarah leaped into action. Social media was a tool to wield, not fear. She could share insights, progress, and the rawness of trial and error. Authenticity was her ally. Perhaps audiences would resonate with the journey as much with the final masterpieces. There, amid breakthroughs and setbacks alike, lay the potential for connection. While crafting an initial social media plan, she envisioned herself sharing snippets of her creative process. Unfinished works, stories of emotional blocks, and the triumphs of breakthroughs. Showing up, she thought, her heart racing with both anticipation and trepidation. That was the path, the bold reclamation not only of her art but of her narrative. Having concluded her strategy, she felt exhausted yet exhilarated, like the calm after a storm. But darkness seeped in again. The familiar sting of doubt stirred beneath her resolve. Would her sister's newfound support be enough to navigate the turbulent waters of family expectations? Would she seek their approval while forging her identity? The tension tugged at her, forcing her to confront a deeper fear. Returning to vulnerability with those she longed to impress. With a shaky breath, Sarah realized that vulnerability, while daunting, was the essence of her journey, not just as an artist, but as a sister. She would have to reconcile the expanding dimensions of who she was becoming with the expectations she had so diligently fought against. And yet, there hung a lingering question, the pulse of uncertainty echoing beneath her determination. Was she truly prepared to share this newfound path and risk the familiar disapproval? Or would she allow the insecurities of her past to redefine her journey once again? As these thoughts mingled, Sarah's resolve to embrace the messiness of growth solidified. Little did she know, the moment of truth loomed just around the corner, waiting to challenge everything she believed. The morning sun filtered through the dusty window, casting warm patterns on the wooden floor. Sarah was up early, fueled by a combination of excitement and anxiety. Today was the day she would post her first social media update about her workshops. It felt like exposing a part of herself that had long been tucked away, hidden behind layers of doubt. This digital window into her world was both thrilling and terrifying. She navigated to the draft she had written late into the night. The words pulsated on the screen, each one holding the weight of her ambitions and fears. She described her vision for the workshops: how art could heal, connect, and transform. Yet, as she hovered over the post button, the shadows of her insecurities whispered in her ear. What if no one cared? What if the response was tepid, confirming the fears that haunted her? Taking a breath, she dismissed the doubts, reminding herself that vulnerability was the cornerstone of creativity. This was a necessary risk, a step into the light from the shadows of her self-imposed confines. She pressed her finger down, and the update was sent into the void of cyberspace. The initial rush of adrenaline was followed by a swell of anxiety as she continuously checked her notifications. Hours passed, each ping barely lifting her spirits. Most responses were kind, yet she fixated on the lingering silence of others. Friends liked her post, but what about the strangers she hoped would join her? The exposure was overwhelming, bearing her soul felt exhilarating and crushing all at once. To shift her focus, Sarah grabbed her keys and decided to take a walk. She walked aimlessly through her neighborhood, the early autumn breeze gently tousling her hair as she reflected on her path. The trees were beginning to cascade into vibrant hues of orange and gold. Nature seemed to be celebrating change, while Sarah felt stuck in indecision about her own transformation. She arrived at a small park, where children played energetically, their laughter piercing through her cloud of worry. The raw joy of their innocence reminded her of a lesson often lost in adulthood, that progress is an unwavering journey, punctuated by moments of joy, fear, and everything in between. Perhaps it was time for her to embrace that the process itself held value beyond any outcomes. With a deeper understanding of her journey beginning to form, Sarah grabbed her sketchbook from her bag and settled onto a bench. The pages beckoned, and as she sketched, she reflected on how sharing her vulnerability might cultivate deeper relationships not only with her audience, but also within herself. This notion stirred a storm of revelation inside her. Each stroke of the pencil became an exploration of possibilities. She sketched not just workshop themes but also snippets of conversation. She hoped to share real moments when artists confessed their struggles and celebrated breakthroughs. It became clear that these would be stories of resilience, moments where participants confronted their own fears just as she had. The sun began to dip, casting a golden hue across the park as Sarah honed in on the essence of her mission. It was more than teaching. It was about creating a supportive space for shared struggles and victories. This transformative insight fueled her with confidence, igniting a new fire to engage with her potential participants openly. Arriving back home, she felt empowered. She quickly jotted down notes about what she'd learned, figuring out how to build narratives around her workshops that emphasized community and vulnerability. But as she directed her thoughts towards organizing her next post, doubt crept back. And would she be strong enough to embrace these conversations publicly? Before she could spiral, another ping from her phone diverted her attention. A message from her sister. "I can't wait to see this in action. Let us talk about your plans this weekend." Sarah paused, the weight of her sister's support hovering in the air. That conversation loomed larger now. It was a window into establishing boundaries in her family dynamics, while paving her own path. With renewed clarity, Sarah felt a motivating resolve swell within her. She was ready to face this new layer of her journey, to confront not just her audience but also the expectations of her family. The moment of truth was approaching, pulling her into its rhythm as she prepared to share not only her artistic endeavors, but the unfiltered truth of her own growth. Yet lurking behind this newfound clarity, a familiar question echoed. Would she truly be able to stand tall against the judgments she had long feared? Or would this confrontation prove to be a greater hurdle than she anticipated? The weekend arrived too quickly, bringing with it the impending conversation that churned within Sarah's mind. She had spent the days leading up to it drafting potential scenarios, each more terrifying than the last. Her sister's enthusiasm was a bright, shining beacon in the fog of uncertainty, but Sarah felt tethered by the weight of unresolved expectations. Would her sister truly embrace the change she was trying to orchestrate? Or would she mirror their family's tendency to belittle what they did not understand? As she prepared for their meeting, Sarah meticulously arranged her notes, balancing practicality and artistry, the meticulousness of a planner and the heart of a creator. The living room was punctuated with splashes of vibrant sketches, fragments of her vision splattered across the walls. Each piece resonated with an undercurrent of validation she craved. Yet still, the critical voice in her head hissed doubts that echoed from her upbringing. How could she bridge the gap between these aspirations and the familial pressures that had shaped her? When her sister arrived, Sarah noticed the energy shift in the room. Casual greetings morphed to scrutinizing glances as they settled on opposite ends of the couch. Small talk filled the initial awkward silence, but Sarah recognized the need to steer the conversation as courage held its breath in her chest. "I've been working on the workshops, and as she hesitated, watching her sister shift slightly, the uncertainty of encapsulation hung in the air like a fragile bubble. I really want to make them about people sharing their authentic experiences. You know, our stories. Her sister's brow furrowed, a mixture of curiosity and confusion crossing her face. So like an art support group? That is part of it, Sarah replied, her voice emerging with tentative strength. But it's more than that. I want it to be a healing space, where creativity can flow from vulnerability, where people share not just their successes, but their struggles too. The initial resistance flashed in her sister's expression, and Sarah's heart sank at the familiar flicker of dismissal. The urge to disguise her ambitions, to cushion them for approval, surged momentarily. But something stronger swelled within her, a burgeoning desire to stand firm against the passivity that had long constrained her. I think people could really connect over their creative processes, especially if they feel safe sharing their failures, she said, noting how the conviction in her words fortified her resolve. Isn't that risky? Exposing yourself like that? Her sister leaned forward, her tone shifting from critical to contemplative. Artists put themselves out there, and sometimes it doesn't go well. I know, Sarah countered, feeling her own breath quicken. But it's still art. If we only share the polished pieces, we lose the truth that inspires them. We hide behind images that paint a perfect picture of ourselves. The intensity of the conversation molded the air, creating a tension that engaged both women. Each word had the potential to either construct or dismantle. Sarah's pulse quickened, not from fear but from the thrill of confronting not only her sister, but the vestiges of herself that feared judgment. Just promise me if it flops. If people don't respond the way you hope. Her sister's voice softened. Don't take it too hard. Maybe not everyone deserves to hear your story. The pang of slight betrayal ricocheted through Sarah. The expectation of failure still loomed. Yet, within her, a dormant determination stirred. She had to resist the urge to flee from her truth because its power lay not in validation from others, but rather in its authentic expression. I'll take that chance, Sarah said firmly, her eyes meeting her sister's with an intensity that transcended the moment. This is about being brave enough to step into the light, even when shadows linger. As they continued discussing practical applications and refining the vision, Sarah felt a shift. She wasn't merely seeking approval. She was actively redefining her narrative. Her sister's discomfort was palpable, but Sarah thrived in the confrontation, understanding that this was just the beginning of her journey both to her audience and her family. With the air lighter yet still charged with emotional voltage, Sarah envisioned the upcoming workshop, the lives it might touch, and the path she would blaze through self-discovery. Yet, beneath that glow, an unsettling question loomed in the background. Was her sister's doubt merely a reflection of their family's legacy, or would it unveil an unseen battle that would shake Sarah's resolve to its core? The confidence she had built wavered as she recalled the voices of her youth, each carrying a hint of scorn. Who would she be if she truly unleashed her creative potential? Would her sister's dismissal guide her back into the shadows, or would it fortify the very guilt she aimed to transcend? The answers danced just out of reach, and Sarah was left wondering how deeply those fears would affect the path she now dared to walk. In the days following her conversation with her sister, Sarah found herself grappling with an amplification of self-doubt. Her sister's hesitance echoed in her thoughts, but rather than wallow in fear, she drew motivation from it. Each time she revisited the workshop's theme, she felt compelled to deepen her understanding of what truly resonated with creativity and vulnerability. She spent hours digging into books that explored the intersection of art and authentic storytelling. The words of artists who bravely laid bare their failures and fears spoke to her, lighting her internal fire. It was in the mutual recognition of shared struggles that Sarah found her footing. It was not just about what could be gained but the importance of weaving open conversations into the fabric of art making. One evening, while poring over notes in her cozy reading nook, a realization struck her. The very act of exposing herself emotionally was not just an individual effort, but a demonstration of strength. It felt like she was practicing a form of rebellion against the lifelong conditioning imposed on her by her family, a silent rejection of their tendency to obscure vulnerability beneath layers of perfect facades. She recalled a time in high school when her art was dismissed as juvenile, prompting her to bury paintings that reflected her inner turmoil. The thought stung, yet it galvanized her resolve. With newfound grit, she devised a plan to launch a small preview gathering before officially unveiling her workshop. This would allow her to gauge interest while opening the space for real connections. Inviting some local artists she had met at community events and a few trusted friends, she crafted an agenda that included icebreaker activities centered around storytelling. The event, she hoped, would be an informal mirror, reflecting the authenticity she so desperately wanted to embrace. As she pinned the final flyer to a community board, Sarah felt the resurfacing echoes of self-doubt. What if they didn't show up? What if they didn't get it? But hovering atop her fears was a thrilling sense of anticipation. She comically chastised herself inside. She was finally embracing the very risks her sister had warned her about. This was circling back to the very core of what she believed: art was not merely the finished product, but the entire process, laden with honesty, mistakes, and life lived fully. The weeks melted into days as the preview approached. Sarah transformed her studio with the vibrant sketches she'd created, making it a safe haven layered with welcoming comfort. The thought of artists sharing their vulnerabilities alongside her loomed large, igniting both excitement and trepidation. On the night of the gathering, she hovered between expectant eagerness and nagging insecurity. The clock struck 7, the hour the evening was to begin, and Sarah paced the room, replaying the rehearsed lines in her head. She dipped into anxious thoughts, visualizing her guests filtering through the door only to be met with confusion at her ambitions. Yet, when the door creaked open and familiar faces began to trickle in, her worries began to dissipate. Each greeting, each smile ignited a warmth that agency had been absent before. Conversations swirled like warm silk wrapping around her, each participant contributing threads to the tapestry that she sought to create. As the icebreakers began one by one, she listened intently to others, their stories spilling forth like the vibrant paint on her canvas. They shared their uncertainties, their moments of failure, the courage it took to pursue their passions. Inspired by their bravery, Sarah felt her own fears begin to evaporate. A sense of belonging enveloped the room, and with it, her confidence strengthened. Just as the discussions deepened, Sarah's heart raced when she spotted her sister at the threshold, hesitating as if considering escape. 4 distinct emotions clawed within Sarah as she locked eyes with her sibling: disbelief, anger, hope, and love. What was she doing here? Hadn't they discussed this? Suddenly, the intention of the evening turned to face her own unresolved battle. There was no denying it, this would be the pivotal moment in her journey. Sarah's voice quivered slightly as she introduced the next segment of their gathering, a personal story of her own failures that shaped her resolve. Would her sister embrace this space of vulnerability, or would it further entrench the family divide? Sarah felt the heavy weight of her sister's gaze, and with it, a deep cultural fear loomed large. Would this be yet another moment of rejection? The threads of her expression tightened around her heart, and the next words out of her mouth could either weave a tighter bond or unravel it entirely. Would this night solidify her mission, or would the harsh abandonment of familial expectations teach her lessons of fear all over again? The room hushed as Sarah steadied the tremor in her voice, the weight of her sister's presence filling the air with unspoken tension. She took a breath, focusing on the kind faces encircling her, the artists whose vulnerabilities she had come to celebrate. Her story was meant to be shared, a tapestry of her struggles, but the immediate pressure of family dynamics loomed larger than any visual she'd had in mind. "I want to talk about the moment I almost quit," she began, casting a glance toward her sister, who remained rooted at the threshold. "It was during an important competition in high school, and an old teacher, someone whose opinion I valued, dismissed my work as juvenile." Sarah felt a sudden rush of heat, recalling the humiliation. "I stopped creating for years because that dismissal cut so deeply. I buried those parts of myself." A soft murmur of understanding rippled through the audience, a reminder that they shared similar scars. The corner of Sarah's heart hesitated, the same family criticism beginning to rise beneath her skin. Would the fourth sharing of her past illuminate her journey, or would she feel that childhood sting again? This journey we've all embarked on as artists isn't purely about success or recognition. It's about courage," she continued, searching for her sister's eyes. There was a flicker of curiosity there, but also the stubborn toll of skepticism. Each brushstroke, each word, every attempt is an expression of who we are beneath the surface. As she spoke, a new thrill began to wash over her. The audience pulling her out from that deep-rooted place of self-doubt. Instead of offering an escape route, their focus became a medium for self-discovery, prompting her to confront her fears. The warmth of the space encouraged her to unravel her narrative, live and unfiltered. "I realized it was in that dismissal that I found my fire," she confessed, determination flooding her expression. "I wanted to prove wrong every limiting belief. I became a rebel, picking up the brush again, embracing failure as an integral part of my art. What others saw as flaws, I transformed into lessons." As she spoke, her sister finally stepped closer, just a fraction, but it felt monumental. Encouraged, Sarah leaned into the shared experience, empowering not just herself, but her audience, inviting them to reflect openly on their own moments of rejection. "Tonight, I hope we can challenge ourselves to be raw, to share the experiences that colored our journey," she urged, locking eyes with each participant. A collective nod echoed as artists began to resonate with her truth, and they started to unravel their layers, one raw moment at a time. Yet, as the atmosphere transformed into a space of emotion and strength, Sarah glanced back at her sister, who remained steadfastly quiet. A wall of uncertainty pressed against the warmth of the unfolding connections. How would she respond to this new front of vulnerability? The air thickened once more when Sarah shared a narrative of rebirth, how she had found solace in creating after her high school debacle. Somewhere between her dedication and doubt, she started to cultivate her own artistic identity, despite familial expectations. The truth hung in the air like paint dripping off a canvas. With every shared experience that night, Sarah felt her resolve coalesce anew. This gathering was not solely a reflective mirror. It was a declaration that she would no longer shy away from uncertainty. However, just as laughter echoed and tears flowed, her sister remained silent, her walls thick with concerns unarticulated. Would she initiate a dialogue, or would she retreat into the shadows of their shared past? The decision loomed like a storm cloud above both sisters, heavy with unspoken potential. Feelings of confrontation and connection flickered like shadows across their eyes. Would Sarah's vulnerability shift the paradigm? Or would it deepen the chasm created by years of misconceptions and fear? As the gathering continued and shared stories poured forth, Sarah's heart raced. Her voice carried not just her fears but a newfound determination to bridge the gap and intention to connect with her sister, who stood as both a beacon of familiarity and an unsettling reminder of her upbringing. What would it take to confront not just her fears, but the emotional walls of the family she had strived to separate herself from? The night was still young, and Sarah sensed a looming climax, one that could either amplify her personal mission or thread its desolation closer to home. The echo of laughter and shared stories filled the room, weaving a tapestry that connected every participant, granting them a space to breathe, to live authentically. Sarah felt invigorated, a sense of purpose drawing her deeper into the moment. Each voice represented a brushstroke on the vibrant canvas they were collectively creating. Yet her attention frequently flickered back to her sister. Would her journey resonate in the heart of the one person she sought acceptance from? When the time came for the attendees to break into smaller groups, Sarah's sister finally approached, her expression softening with cautious curiosity. "Can I join your group?" she asked, vulnerability mingling with a touch of apprehension. The tension that had crackled between them began to dissolve, replaced by a silent understanding that this was an invitation to confront long-standing issues. "Of course," Sarah replied, her heart fluttering with excitement and dread, both at once. She guided her sister to a circle where they could share personal challenges in their artistic paths, a deliberate choice meant to prompt discussion and foster openness. As her sister took a seat, Sarah felt a rush of solidarity. She shared a small but impactful story about a painting that had initially felt like a failure, a rendition that had fallen short of her expectations. It was through that struggle that she discovered the beauty of process, the grace hidden in imperfection. "I want you all to know," Sarah added, looking directly at her sister, that it's not just about the finished product. Every failure is a stepping stone to our growth. I've come to see that each mistake has shaped my artistry and my path. As the conversation flowed, other participants began revealing their own failures, their fears, and how those experiences had transformed into cornerstones of their practices. The room buzzed with empathy, and in that moment, Sarah felt the barriers begin to fade not just with her workshop participants, but with her sister as well. Inspired by her courage, her sister finally spoke. "I've always thought of your art as a hobby. I didn't understand why you were pursuing it instead of something practical," she confessed, her voice trembling slightly. "But hearing you talk about it now, I see the importance behind your journey." Sarah's breath caught in her throat, the gravity of that admission dissolving years of misunderstandings. "It's okay," she responded gently. "I also struggled to find value in my voice when it didn't align with the expectations we grew up with. But I've learned that my path deserves celebration, just like yours." They exchanged glances, the tension of the past swirling around them. Yet there was a flicker of hope igniting a chance to redefine their connection through empathy and support. Together, they moved deeper into the conversation. As layers peeled back and vulnerabilities sparked understanding, Sarah realized she hadn't only reclaimed her artistic identity. She was also beginning to weave a new narrative with her sister, one that honored both their true selves rather than what was expected. As the gathering concluded and each participant expressed gratitude, Sarah felt the culmination of her efforts unfold within her spirit. Guests lingered, discussing plans for future workshops and the connections they would seek. It was in that warmth that Sarah's sister turned to her, a newfound assurance shimmering in her eyes. "Let us talk more about your workshops," she proposed, her tone encouraging, validating Sarah's journey in a way that felt both surreal and grounding. With a smile blossoming across her heart, Sarah nodded, excitement mingling with gratitude. This was the moment where disparate worlds met: the professional realm she had been nurturing with her artistry, and the familial ties she had long yearned to mend. This day marked not just the revelation of her artistic ambitions, but a profound transformation in her relationship with her sister, a visible testament to her growth, reinforcing that vulnerability was the path toward healing. As she closed the door of the studio, with laughter still echoing in her ears, Sarah felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She was finally stepping into her power. The completion of this journey validated her worth in a realm where she had once felt invisible. Sarah had achieved a reconciliation not just with her art, but with herself, poised with an established identity, her confidence clad in the hues of her triumphs and vulnerabilities. She was ready to embrace the world anew, to embrace herself fully. Now it's your turn to take a leap. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that can reshape your journey. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. You need to support the community that uplifts transformation. Comment your reactions and theories about Sarah's evolution and the insights you've gained. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share the inspiration. Together, let's spread the power of personal growth and authentic storytelling.